Five, four, three, two, one. We have ignition. Strap in. You're about to listen to the hottest sounds.
Dream Catcher Radio.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Open Window with Bradders. Got three very, very special guests with us today for this episode. We've got Cllr Allessandro Giorgio, who's the Conservative leader of Enfield. He's also part of the London Assembly. Quite outspoken down there in those chambers. It's lovely to see. Second, we've got Hayden Groves. What an amazing individual. I'm going to let you figure this one out. But he's a cyclist, chef, and he will explain the other things that I think is amazing, personally. So listen out for that one. And then we've got Cllr Audrey Dempsey from Reform, who was accused of being a racist, and she explains that case has come to an end. Thank God for that. It was a pointless case in the first place. So buckle up. Here we go. Here, who's a councillor for Enfield and also has got a job in the London Assembly as well. And today we're going to talk politics. I love talking about politics, especially listening to councillors, because in all honesty, pardon the pun, I find them more honest. And you hear more information on the ground. You said I can call you Alex. So Alex, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, and welcome, and thank you for joining us at Dreamcatcher. I know you're really busy. Now, let's just to give a backstory about who you are. Can you say how you got into politics, when it started, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, so I got, I joined the Conservative Party as, all wildly fun, love-going people do when I was 16. Completely normal for a 16-year-old, obviously. And then got elected a councillor in 2014, re-elected up until 2022, and then I became leader of the Conservative opposition on Enfield Council. And then in 2024, I got elected a member of the London Assembly. Purely, I wasn't expecting it, mind you, but it was a happy accident.
And in terms of that quick progress, that's got to be it's quite interesting. I mean, I don't know many people that moved that quick, really. In all fairness, you've got as being leader of the opposition, and I've watched a lot of your social media content, and you are quite vocal.
Yeah, I think one of those things is I am so bored, and I must admit probably 90% of the electorate are just so bored with politics, because fundamentally politicians want to say what they think, but, they're scared of the electorate. They think that, you shouldn't be who you are. When in reality, yes, people want politicians to sort of maybe they want them on a bit of a pedestal, but fundamentally people just want normal people to represent them. And the way I grew up, it's just a fundamental belief of mine. Just be normal. Don't try and be overly clever. Don't try and use complicated language when you don't need to. Just use very straightforward arguments to illustrate your point. And I think that's what all colleagues should be doing, quite frankly.
And I'm guessing, I sense you suffer from a lot of people politicking to you, fellow councillors and that, in your chambers, outside the chambers?
Listen, politicians get a lot of abuse. Don't get me wrong, some of it is deserved, some of it isn't. We live in an era now where you get, these vile trolls just online, just say things behind anonymous accounts, and colleagues try and be clever and say things through other people. But fundamentally, most politicians leave the politics at the chamber, because at the end of the day, I've got colleagues in Labour, in the Liberal Democrats, in Reform, people that we just go for a drink and talk about our kids, talk about our families, talk about the football, just have a normal life. Politicians should not allow politics to interfere in their personal lives. So yes, there's a lot of abuse, but fundamentally we are all people. And, that's the way I like to conduct myself anyway.
That's a very good. There's a lot of skullduggery, by the way. I must admit. But that's a fair point. One thing when speaking to counsellors as well, um, and the theatre of when you're in public chambers and that, and like, um, and they always say, do you know what? We actually talk to each other, but
Yeah,
we're basically we have to do our job
yeah.
in those instances. But
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: full council and the House of Commons and the Lords and the Assembly, there is a time and a place. I know people call it theatre, but it is the one time when we're not in committee to give a speech and genuinely get our passion out of our system. To be able to talk about exactly how you feel, because in committee it's sort of question and answers. It's not speeches. It's not long-winded. Whereas when you get to give a speech, you can say exactly what you think and how you feel. So there's absolutely a place for it. Don't get me wrong. There are some morons in politics that use chat GPT to write their speeches, and it's boring and it's, annoying. And, they're just giving a speech for the sake of it. I would ban that straight away, mind you. For me, it's come up with your own arguments, say exactly how you feel, what you want to do. And that's the way it should be done. No wonder why people find politicians so boring. We've gone from an era of, wonderful, we've gone from Churchill, Thatcher, Clement Attlee, and Blair to what we have today, to Robot Starmer, who's just boring. Politics should be boring in its outcomes, but in its, I think it was Governor Cuomo, not the son, the father, that said, campaign in poetry and govern in prose. I think it's a good way to live your life.
yeah, yeah, Como was in lots of problems anyway, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So let's talk about boringness and that sort of stuff. So say let's just go to PMQs on a Wednesday. What do you think about that yourself personally?
Oh, I find it incredibly boring. I would say this, but I think Kemi's been on fire recently. She's doing a good job, but fundamentally, the Prime Minister knows what everybody's going to ask, and the opposition knows, I suspect, generally what the Prime Minister's response is going to be, because he's so boring, and I don't think he's that bright. He can't really think on his feet. So he never really comes up with either an answer or anything particularly witty or intelligent. Whereas if you look at people that were fantastic at the dispatch box, David Cameron was very good, Tony Blair was very good, Boris Johnson was very good. These are people, these were prime ministers that could, either answer the question in a clever way or be witty. And this current crop of front benchers on the government side just haven't got it. So I personally don't watch PMQs, but I watched it religiously when I first got involved in politics, thinking this is what it would be like.
Mm. With all the constituents and that you've met, what's over the year? Well, let's just talk about over the last few years with all the big issues. We've got cost of living, we've got social uncertainty, we've got divisive politics going on regularly now. You've got obviously newly reform, who apparently are not divisive whatsoever. What is your constituents saying to you, and also what are your beliefs of the current issues facing over that? So let's just go over the next year.
So the last year, it's, for most people, it's been just really struggling. It's, you could be on an average wage, and to be honest with you, I've got no idea how people are surviving right now. The area I live in the northwest of the borough, yes, you've got massive pockets of wealth, but then you've got people that are just middle income earners. People that, 1 to 2 cars, 2-3 bedroom house, very standard suburban living. For this part of Enfield, and for much of Enfield, that's the norm. And everything's gone up. I went to Sainsbury's the other day. I filled up one of the typical plastic bags. It was like 80 quid. I don't know what I spent 80 quid on, but it was only one bag's worth of shopping. It wasn't even a big bag. One of those nice big posh hemp ones. It was just a normal plastic bag. I just think to myself, like, fuel's gone up, taxes have gone up, council tax is going up, insurance is going up, inflation is going up, everything is just going up, and people are just struggling, especially they're trying to renew their mortgages on higher interest rates and things like that. And that's just the message. People should be like, we've got no disposable income. Everything is going on. just basic living stuff, and there's nothing at the end of the month to save for a holiday or whatever. So that's mainly what I'm getting back. People are, energy bills as well. People are really feeling the grind. Um, as to what my view is on a lot of these things, well, I'm a conservative that thinks in cutting taxes. You have to manage the economy well. Um, and if you look at the era where we had the largest amount of growth in this country was the 1980s. Well, guess what? Margaret Thatcher cut the top rate of income tax from 83 to 43% and the bottom rate from 43 to 23. So, people could buy their own homes. Yes, they were, council homes as well, and the right to buy. People can't survive because we are being overtaxed everywhere. And that's the problem. That's one of the biggest problems.
Yeah, going back to, I know I agree with you. I agree with you because we get lots of listeners messaging and about their issues. I mean, there are so many, but the main thing for me is social anxiety and cost of living. And people also on the cost of living things, people are actually using their credit cards. They're looking for the next deal to get an interest-free credit card.
Yeah.
And they're going into it each month, popping back out again a little bit. They're using their overdrafts and that sort of thing. These are mature families that used to have money in their bank.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what we found post 2008 crash, there was a period under the coalition government where when they raised the personal allowance, that was a massive help to so many people. And I say this as a conservative, it was a Lib Dem idea, which we then incorporated when we were in government, which I think was one of the best things we ever did. Over the last 14 years in government, that was literally the best thing we ever did because it took millions of people out of income tax altogether and, cut the taxes of most basic and middle earners. So, yeah, but you're absolutely right. People are struggling, politicians can lie and pretend, oh, it's all going to be hunky-dory, easy answers. There aren't any easy answers. People, the electorate needs to understand that difficult choices are going to have to be made one way or another. If people want tax cuts, it means you've got to find the money somewhere else. You want more welfare spending? Well, guess what? Then taxes have to go up. It's a give and take both ways.
Yeah. But, okay, I won't go into too deep, but my belief personally is that the political parties of the day of this is not an overnight problem. This has been ongoing massively. And in I believe in this country, there's massive structural problems. There's so much underinvestment, but yet there's no money. You start looking at new PFI schemes, for example. They're the worst schemes ever because of how much it actually costs over the years. When we're doing 100-year deals, the schemes end up costing millions upon millions upon millions more than if you were to do them yourselves. Now, here's a question which you probably get asked quite a lot. This is someone asked me. This is actually somebody else in the radio station asked me this. Looking back to your career since 2014, what moment stands out as the most defining for you as a councillor? I know that's such a deep question. I don't know if you can even answer that one. Or maybe even give a couple if you like.
No, I don't. I don't think, as a councillor, I don't think there's been one defining moment. It is very much a slow grind. Don't forget, by May next year, I would have been a councillor for 12 years. I was elected at 21, so that you can work out how old I am. I'm relatively young, but I was also very young when I first got elected. And, over a 12-year period, I mean, the one thing that I don't talk about too much, but it is quite funny. So the first time I ever made it into the national press was 2015. And I was giving a speech that the then cabinet member for finance, the Labour cabinet member for finance, didn't particularly like. And he called me a "see you next Tuesday" across the chamber. That made it into the Standard, into the Sun, and whatever. And God bless his soul, it was Andrew Stafford. And actually, we became good friends after that. So that, I didn't, listen, people say things in the heat of the moment, and it was a silly thing to do, but he wasn't a bad man. And so I forgave him pretty quickly and we became good friends. And so, it just goes to show, look, people, even at home, you get into an argument with your missus and you'll say things that either of you will say things that you don't mean, but it doesn't mean you get divorced afterwards. You just work it out, don't you?
Right. Yeah. Did you have to go out for stripy paint or sky hooks or anything like that?
No, none of that. None of that.
Okay. So you're the leader of the opposition for Enfield, as you've said. What what's sort of the biggest things that you're looking to confront the Labour Party on at the moment? What are the biggest things that really
Yes. So
is
the
your
big
bugbear?
dividing lines are: we want to bring back the weekly bin collections. We want to get rid of the low traffic neighborhoods. We want to protect the green belt. We want to stop their 20-mile-per-hour schemes and their new cycle lane schemes. Mind you, we won't remove any of the existing cycle lanes because I think that's a silly thing to do and a waste of money. But fundamentally, it's bread and butter issues, local issues. What Labour did at the last election is they just stuck Boris Johnson all over their leaflets saying, this was during Partygate, the Tories and Boris, this and that, had nothing to do with the local election. And that was successful for them because people bought into it. But now they've got nowhere to hide because they have a Labour government. And so they can't keep blaming things on the Conservatives. So, I'm glad they're finally going to get what they deserve.
At the behest of their residents?
Well, look, fundamentally, most people, if you are a good council, the public shouldn't know that you exist because it means you're doing the basics right. The roads are good, the bins are being taken out, the borough looks clean, the parks are maintained, council tax is relatively low. But if you are a disaster of a council, then everybody knows who's in charge. And that's where we are in Enfield. Everybody knows who's in charge.
Yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are they doing?
How well are they
Yeah,
doing?
number 10 being great, one being
Oh, so well,
disaster.
0 to 10, I'll stick to zero. But if there were minus, they would be atrocious. And I don't just say this as a political opponent. When we first lost the council um, to Labour in 2010, that administration was nowhere near as bad as what's come in its place. As the leader got done over in 2018, and then since then it's just been appalling.
Mm. The what's the finances like in Enfield?
Oh, dire. I mean, we're £1.5 billion in debt. That's £31 million a year in debt interest payments. By the way, I'm very nasally because I've got a cold. But yeah, £31 million a year in debt interest repayments, which means that £31 million needs to be taken out of council services, frontline services every year just to service the debt.
Yeah. And is there a chance of getting that down, do you see, or not really?
Yeah, so the auditors have recently given the council some suggestions. So they did something. It's all very boring stuff, so I won't bore your listeners too much with it. But they issued what's a Section 24 notice, which is a very, very rare thing to do. Only 8% of this auditor's clients have gotten them at councils, which basically says you need to sell off Meridian Water, you need to sell off Energetic, and you need to do something different with Housing Gateway. Now, none of those things will mean anything to your listeners, but they can search it up online and understand the point.
And on that point, you talk about Housing Gateway. What's the housing situation like in Enfield?
Very bad. The council's extremely bad at getting sites off the ground, but then equally, and I would love to explain this to the electorate, councils and the government are not house builders. It is not their job to build houses. It is the private sector's job to build houses. And the government, the mayor, and councils need to create an environment to make it easier to build the right houses in the right places.
I agree with you. Something someone showed me last week is a planning application for a block of flats, a small block of 12 units, back in 1980, yeah. And it was done on 6 pages of paper. You do the same thing now, it's over 1,100 pages, various reports and
We've got to keep the bureaucrats in their jobs, don't we?
well, that's what I think. This quasi sort of system, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And how much money is spent on advisors? I mean, we're looking at someone was talking about reform, because obviously reform is basically rallying like anything at the moment. Um, but the even in Kent, they spent something like 60 million on advisors. What do you need advisors for when you've got staff?
Yeah, I mean, in Enfield, we spend about 20 million a year on consultants, which I think is outrageous. I mean, look, for me, once again, if you have thick politicians, then you need lots of people around them telling them what to do. If you have politicians that have convictions and understand what they want to do, you do not need that level of consultancy. None of this stuff is complicated.
Yeah, I understand. You obviously need legal advice and all that sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
but just that the money is just surreal. I mean, 24 million on IT consultants. It's just unbelievable. You wouldn't spend that money, in your own
No,
household or your own business. It just
no.
wouldn't happen.
I wish I
So
had 24 million spare, but yeah, I agree.
the what's the difference between you working for Enfield as a leader of opposition and also um, London Assembly member?
So
How does that work? And also, how does that affect your overall responsibilities?
so the two actually balance each other quite well because don't forget there is a massive overlap between the mayor and the 32, well, 33 if you include the City of London boroughs. So our primary function is to scrutinise the mayor and his policies and his political appointees. So the two lend itself very well. I'm a far better assembly member because I understand how local government works because they're very similar roles. Um, I mean, look, it's busy and I am busy. And, I'd like to think I've actually got one of the best attendance records in both the Assembly and the Council because I'm paid to do a job by the taxpayer. So you should absolutely do it. Look, things come up, family emergencies, whatever. But, I'm doing both. I think I'm doing both well. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, I hope the people of London are happy with me.
Yeah, I've seen you in the London Assembly. The What do you think about the London Mayor? Just out of interest.
Ha, I'm not allowed to swear on your show, am I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not going to. Don't worry. He look. The thing about Khan, he has got an incredibly thin skin. He can dish it, but he can't take it, and this is his problem. I mean, he's just driven London into the ground. People can hate Boris and Ken as much as they want, but it was never as bad as this. And I'm not going to bore all your listeners with statistics and things like that, but it's just the state of London is dire. It's still the greatest city in the world, but we could be so much better than we are.
The Our listeners know about the crime, rapes, all those sort of things that's gone up. It's horrific. Even like you could say low level crime, but I think it's very serious.
Yeah.
Over 100,000 mobile phones stolen every
Yeah.
year.
Well, one phone stolen every 6 minutes in London.
Yeah, unbelievable, unbelievable. And this is the other bit I don't get is how the mayor constantly gets more and more money and less gets done. Well, the last budget was 20 billion.
Yeah, yeah, 21 billion. So look, once again, a lot of it is statutory services, so it's money that he can't touch, but a lot of it he can touch, and he's just useless with it. You know, when Boris was mayor, he gave a very good example. He said when I came in, they were still hosting community shows teaching young men not to stab each other, and he goes, of course. We were spending 100, 200 grand on this a year. And of course, it was a complete waste of money and no different. So I cut it. Left-wing politicians do this sort of nonsense to make themselves feel better. But fundamentally, it's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. And for that 200 grand, you could probably hire an extra 3 police officers on London streets to stop people actually stabbing each other. None of this is complicated. Stop wasting money and actually invest in policing.
Do you have much knife crime in Enfield?
Yeah, we've got we can't remember what the last stats were, but we've definitely had an increase since Sadiq Khan became mayor of London. I think we actually the peak of knife crimes happened under Sadiq Khan. In 1 year was the highest number we ever had. I think It was either last year or the year before, but it was just atrocious. But he never talks about that, does he? Because it, doesn't suit the narrative.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's deluded, in my opinion. The it must be deeply offensive to even yourself, let alone constituents and
Yeah.
citizens, because I find it offensive. And in all honesty, I know many people, and I'm not even exaggerating, including myself, don't really feel that safe going into London.
No,
And you have to be on your guard all the time.
yeah.
Um,
Well, Westminster, for example, where a lot of the clubs and pubs and bars are that you would want to go out in, cinemas in Leicester Square and things like that. It's That's actually the highest crime area in London. Per 100,000 people, it's got the highest crime rate in London.
really. Uh, I remember doing a development once in Croydon, right opposite the magistrates court. The Crown Court is right around the corner, and the police station is just to the left.
Yeah,
That junction of that area had the highest crime rate in Croydon.
yeah. Things have gone mad.
It is, yeah. But I'm hoping things will change. I know we live in hope. I mean, a lot of negative people, unless we change everything, our country's coming to an end and all this sort of stuff. But I don't think it is that bad. I think we really, really need some serious change. And everybody talks about change, but I also feel that as soon as people get into office, I mean, Labour is a prime example of how they've gone against the manifesto massively, and they do it with a smile. It's repulsive.
Look, this works both ways, right? You know, the electorate needs to see past lies from politicians. They need to keep questioning, how are you going to do this? Why are you going to do this? How's it going to help me? How's it going to help the country? What politicians need to do is be honest about what they can and can't do. And there's nothing I hate more than a manifesto that is filled with things that you can't achieve in 5 years. You know, Politicians need to be honest and say, this will be a 10-year project. We're going to do as much as we can in our first election. But if we win again, that's when we're going to finish the job. Nothing happens quickly in this world, especially when it comes to government, whoever's in charge. Just be honest. That's all you can do, because if you lie in a manifesto or with general promises, the electorate will do you over the next time, as we've seen over successive elections.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hate all the false promises, but the problem is they're all saying it, and everybody then starts believing it. And the thing that I find most amazing is that whenever people speak, politicians speak, it's recorded. And all you have to do is what you said in 2020, 21, 23, 25. It's a walking contradiction. And I don't think it's fair. I really don't think it's fair. How does it work in terms of Enfield with you and City Hall as councillors? What sort of relationship do you have?
So they're two very different bodies. Yes, they work together and overlap, but fundamentally, it's two very different roles. So, the differences on the assembly is because the mayor has executive power, that you do a lot of your cross-party work with all the other parties. So, for example, in the London Assembly, because we have a proportional system, we've got 5 parties. We've got Conservative, Labour, Green, Liberal, Democrat, Reform. All of us, work together to try and get the best out of our committee meetings. It's very bipartisan. Yes, there's politics involved, but for the most part, it's actually all right. I can't complain.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to reword the question that one of the other hosts asked. What is your best achievement you think you've been involved in, and you think, actually, do you know what? I'm really happy with that.
Well, the problem is I've been in opposition my whole career. But to be honest with you, it's mainly been the casework. I've managed to really, even as an opposition councillor, I've managed to really change people's lives. For example, when I first got elected, there was a woman. Her mum had terminal cancer. She couldn't really look after her, but the mum needed her own place. It was this whole thing, and I managed to get them on the housing list, and they got housed and everything. And that for me was, because I've helped allow that woman to die in peace, in the comfort of a home, with her family around, that she otherwise wouldn't have had. There have been others to do with planning applications that are completely outrageous that I've managed to stop, not all of them, but stop some of them, that would have just destroyed the lives of neighbours on either side. I mean, all of this seems like really small stuff to people, but I'm one person that, if you can make a change to one life for the better, that's an achievement in my eyes. So basically, lots of mini achievements. Because I don't think getting elected to anything is particularly an achievement. You've campaigned hard, you've won the argument. It's what you do afterwards.
And do you get a lot of support from the Conservatives?
Yeah, I've got no complaints. I mean, I listen. As I said, I've been a member since I was 16, so it's like family to me. I'm happy where I am.
Talking about housing again. I'm sorry to jump around, but
Yeah.
the you were petitioning about housing needs and protecting the green belt. How did that go in the end?
Well, we're still going through the process. So the government is looking to destroy the green belt in Enfield, as well as the council in City Khan. But these are the same hypocrites that say we have a climate emergency. So explain that one to me. You think we should destroy the green belt, the green lungs of London, but yet we have a climate emergency? The two don't really go together.
I must admit, I was watching some deforestation projects in Africa, and it made me really sad, to be honest. I was thinking all these trees that took so long to build, and we're just cutting them down.
Yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, I'm not one of the, I detest the fact that people are being taxed so much for all these green climate policies. But yet I have solar panels. I've got an electric car. I believe in protecting the green, unbuilt environment, because that is our greatest environmental asset. And to ruin it, so essentially, if the government had it its way, there would be no green belt left, no farms, no nothing. It'd just be grey tower blocks everywhere. Well, how does that work for the environment?
Yeah, we'll end up looking like China. Very industrial.
China's a much bigger country, so they've got a bit more space to do stuff. But we are a tiny island. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, what I mean by that though is all the cities and surrounding areas, urban areas, are so dense. It's been unbelievable. You cannot find green spaces.
No.
Thankfully, you can in London. There are green spaces.
Yeah, I agree.
But we have lost lots of sports areas and that sort of stuff. Playing fields.
It's outrageous.
Yeah. So let's try and finish up. I just want to finish up with anything that you'd like to say to anybody that be listening. Our largest audience is London-based. We don't know why, but we get audiences all over the world. But generally, it's London, this sort of area. So if there's anything you'd like to close on, Alex.
No, there's one thing I want to say, and I keep repeating it. Never take a politician's word for it. Listen to what they say. Listen to what they say. Go investigate, and then make a decision on how you vote. Don't ever give me, I vote Labour because my mum and dad voted Labour and my grandparents voted Labour. That's a stupid thing to say. You should instead say, I want to vote Labour, I want to vote Conservative, I want to vote Green, because this is what I believe in. That's the right approach. And I think we would have a much better country if people looked at, politicians, number one, to stop lying, and number two, people, because the way to stop them lying is by actually looking into things. And if you look into things, you will find that, you've got the power as the electorate and you make your own decisions. Don't just cast a vote for the sake of it. Actually think about it and actually think to yourself, is what they might be telling the truth. This is what they want to do, or this is what they've tried to do. But is it practical? Is it actually going to happen? I don't want to be overly critical of any particular leader, but 90% of this country probably agrees with Nigel Farage on immigration and what he's saying. But my question is it going to happen as quickly as he says if he were to become prime minister? And will it actually happen? So that's just a very good example of how you should question things. Look at the prime minister and the chancellor. She said, "Oh, I'm not going to increase national insurance." What did she do? She increased national insurance. So all while saying, "Oh, the books are awful, this and that." So that's a very long-winded way of saying is people need to do their own homework. I think that's the best thing for democracy.
Yeah, but lay people can't. People like me, for example, would not be able to account for people that outright lie. It's possible,
look, yeah. It's the one thing I hate the most on the doorstep is when people say, "Oh, you're all the same," because we're not all the same. I find it appalling that they would compare me to the idiots that we have in the Enfield Labour Council here. But for me, it's I've told you what I want to do. I will give you as much time in the world on the doorstep to challenge me on it. But if you come to the conclusion, I agree with this guy, then vote for me. If you don't agree, don't vote for me. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Where do people find you on social media?
Oh, now you're going to make me check my account. So it's I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I have to remember my names now because so on Instagram it is, sorry, bear with me. It is Cllr Allessandro Georgiou AM. On TikTok, it's Cllr Allessandro Georgiou AM, and on Facebook, Cllr Allessandro. So they're all the same. Cllr Allessandro Georgiou AM.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much for your time. And one thing I will say, more people need to actually vote. They really do. Because the voter turnout is generally pretty poor in this country.
Well, look, if everybody that hated Sadiq Khan went out and voted last time, Sadiq Khan would not be mayor of London. Right. And I will say this one thing. If you do not vote, don't complain to me. I say that to anyone. When I get it on the doorstep look, people have got a right not to vote. That's absolutely their right. But if they don't vote and then complain and say, "Oh, Alex, I wish you had won." Well, did you go and vote? No. Well, I said, well, you didn't really help them, did you?
Right. Okay. Thanks, Alex, for your time, and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your day.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Through the send a bird, gonna drown him out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching back to the beat I drum. To the beat I step. To be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Whenever the words wanna cut me down, I send a thought to drown them out. This is me.
Okay, today, an interesting story actually. I contacted this gentleman. His name is Hayden Groves. Do look him up on the internet about his chefing and what he does for a company and through his consulting. And he actually did say to me, I was slightly embarrassed actually. In fact, have you actually looked me up yet? And I didn't. In fact, apart from I was following his social media. And I was gobsmacked, if I'm honest. So, Hayden, good morning and welcome. You just told me two things. Your wife's birthday today,
Yeah,
and your daughter's doing her driving test as we're doing this audio.
pretty much as we speak. Yeah, she's on her way to take her driving test. It's it's 10 o'clock. It's very dull and wet here in Hertfordshire, and she's on her way to take her driving test. So, if I'm a slightly anxious voice, then I'm really got everything crossed for her. So, yeah,
I'm assuming it's the first driving test, is it?
it is. Yeah, her sister passed
Yeah.
on her first occasion, so she's a couple of years older than Elsie. But so yeah, we've got our fingers crossed for her. She's tried really hard. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, got a little funny story about driving tests. A friend of mine, he did his driving test only, I think it was last year. Got his license, sorry, last year. 3 years prior to that, he's done about 11 driving tests, and failed them all. And his son this year did his driving test, passed first time.
Well, let's hope this isn't the first of 11 driving tests for Elsie. Let's hope you haven't put the mockers on it, Brad. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Hayden, when we first spoke, and I really appreciate your time today, you told me you started off flipping burgers at McDonald's, was it?
Yeah, 15 and three quarters. Back in those days, as soon as you had your national insurance card, you could work. So I think you always got that just before your 16th birthday. So I was 15 and three quarters, and there was a new branch of McDonald's that opened up in Hertfordshire, in Hertford, the county town. And well, we all got to work. So yeah, I did my I think 3 months or 12 shifts there in McDonald's. Yeah.
And obviously, I know where you're at now, and you're at a point where you've been making decisions, stuff like that. What's your journey into where you're at now? You know, because you're a fantastic chef. What's the path that you did you take?
Well,
Actually, before I get to that, can I just ask a question? Did you learn anything at McDonald's?
yeah. I mean, the systems are amazing, and I don't know if you've seen the film The Founder, for example.
No, I haven't. No.
About the story of McDonald's and how the guy pretty much took it away from the two brothers. It was on Netflix, so yeah, look it up. Very interesting story, really. But what they have is absolute consistency and training, and even what was that? So I don't know, 30, 35, 36 years ago. So you can probably tell the math. There was some, just the way that they work, the systems, the training. I knew I didn't want to go through. I wasn't going to have a career in McDonald's. That wasn't my calling, should we say? But it certainly suited at the time. When you needed a part-time job.
Yeah, it's quite interesting as well. McDonald's. My partner is currently doing a study into currency, and she just had to do an essay on scientific management, and it revolves around the work of Frederick Taylor. which talks about scientific management and how the ecosystem of the business should work, where limit basically don't give staff too many tasks to do. Give one staff member this task, give another staff member that task, and another staff member that task. And I think that's pretty much what McDonald's do, don't they?
Yeah, they all work as they all have their individual sort of areas, whether they're sort of on the grill, on the fryer, or whether they're serving the customers, and then they all, the product comes up together at the sort of predetermined time. Yeah, it's very automated as well. All of the
So from McDonald's, what happened next?
I went to college, so I studied sort of a chef qualification, City and Guilds 706 1 and 2 at local college for 2 years. And while I was studying, I took a part-time job in a local hotel. So, you were helping do the starters, and for large weddings, should we say, that was where you pretty much started. And then as you got more and more time that I was there, actually, I then ended up working the stove and cooking some steaks. And then one particular day, the head chef was off. He had an event, and the new sous chef, that's number 2, that he just recruited. Let's just say they turned up and they were perhaps under the influence of something that, and they weren't able to hold their end up in the kitchen. And so myself and another junior chef, we pretty much ran the whole service. Wow. And I remember the following day, got a phone call early morning on a Sunday. I lived at home with my parents, and mum woke me up and she said, "Look, chef's on the phone." And he said, he started off, "I hear that there were some challenges last night." So I thought I was going to get a bollocking, shall we say? And I said, "Yeah, X, Y, and Z." And he said, "Well, I heard that you and Elliot did amazing, and I got an extra 50 pence an hour from then on." So realised that hard work paid off, shall we say?
Can I ask a question?
How much was that?
No, I'm not going to go with that. I'm not going to go there. I'm the same age as you. There's a lot of influencers nowadays saying don't go to college, don't go to university. What's your thoughts and feelings about that? The reason why they're saying that is a waste of, getting to work, basically. That's what it's.
I mean, it's slightly mixed, because I think that you learn a lot of processes at college, and you learn some fundamentals that you wouldn't learn straight in at the business. But I had a job in the trade at the same time as studying, so I did a sort of, your 2 portions that you learn at college, but also did a busy service, a couple of nights a week, and also at the weekend. So that was very important. But my eldest, our eldest daughter, is doing a management degree apprenticeship.
Right.
So she's actually working 4 days a week and then doing a day study, sort of online university. Yeah. And I do feel that is sort of the way to go, certainly with some trades, should we say? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's what I was going to say, actually. What you did was akin to an apprenticeship, but you did it yourself by doing those two objectives. Okay, so after your 50p pay rise, what happened? You go to Las Vegas. What happened next?
Yeah. I mean that. Yeah, that certainly didn't go very far, but I think I went from the heady heights of £3 an hour to £3.50. But I then graduated from college. My dream and my passion was always, when I was 16, 17, 18, was to be a pro cyclist. But I wasn't really good enough. I was okay at a sort of regional level, but I didn't have that extra bit. I was never probably going to make it. Despite riding 3 national championships. So I sort of wanted to do both. So I cooked and I held a job as a chef, but also at the weekends I will, would turn up at a race, and sometimes you drive 2 or 3 hours and then, race for 4 hours and then drive back and then get up 6 o'clock in the morning and stand in the kitchen. It wasn't really, giving yourself the best opportunity to be competitive. So I sort of did both, and then and I worked in sort of the local restaurants, hotels, and then I went into what we call B&I, business and industry. So I ended up cooking for some of the business elite. I was 30 years old, and my biggest opportunity was to be the exec chef at Lloyd's of London, which is a very historic building. And I was exec chef there for 8 years, and during that time I got to cook for national and international royalty, including the Queen. So it was an amazing opportunity for me.
Yeah, yeah. Lloyd's of London is mainly known as well for its external elevators, isn't it?
Yeah, the external elevators, and the big glass annex in the middle where they got the trading floor. Yeah, it's
yeah. Like I said to you, I had the opportunity to be on the top floor. One time, and the food was impeccable. I can't remember what year it was, but it's got to be about 15 or so years ago. It was a lovely experience. It's proper environment.
Never know, I might have been there then, because
you could have been.
Yeah, 2004 to 2012. That was
Yeah, so you would have been there then, yeah. So I ate your food unknowingly. There you go.
My mum, if it was good, it must have been when I was away on holiday or something.
So you talked about, I mean, you jumped probably quite a period of time there anyway, but did you work in multiple different restaurants, or did you always generally stick with the same businesses?
No, I did. I worked at a very large, well-known pharmaceutical company called GSK, and I had, I was 25 years old, and I had, I think, 20 direct reports. It was a huge job for someone so young, and we did everything from baked beans on toast to, client entertaining there. And then obviously the big role was Lloyd's, and that allowed me to get my name slightly, within the industry.
Yeah, and so you're currently doing that. We're going to talk about your cycling and charity very shortly, because, like I said, I didn't know about this, and it's fascinating, really. Where are you at now in life in terms of? I know you call yourself a consultant chef. What does that actually mean?
It means that I'm freelance. Consultant sometimes is it's a glamorous term of someone that's in the know, should we say? But actually, in truth, when that horrible COVID thing happened, that we all went into lockdown, like many in my industry, hospitality industry, I was made redundant and lost my job, and so I sort of made the decision. Well, I'll set up as myself.
Yeah.
As my name, and as someone that could either do recipe development, training, anything that's a skill set that potentially a business might not have, I could do. During COVID time, I was literally on the roof at home. I remember lassoing myself to the chimney with a big bungee and an old leather belt around my waist, and I was scraping all the moss off the tiles on the roof, listening to a podcast, and then the phone went, and we were just about to come out of lockdown the first time, and it was like, oh, could you get to Ealing tomorrow? Just as somebody I knew in the hospitality industry, this was on the call, and I said, well, what for? He said, we've got a client that wants to set up a restaurant, sort of right from the get-go. And I was like, well, okay, I could get to Ealing, I could do that. It's, blah, blah, blah. Right, yeah, I can meet you there 10 o'clock tomorrow. So I met him there, and in this kitchen was a sort of professional oven that's self-cleaning that hadn't been cleaned, and 2 capsules of Lemsip on the windowsill, and that was pretty much the kitchen. And there was no staff, no suppliers, nothing, and they wanted to open in a week to 10 days.
No way.
That was a big project.
What sort of restaurant was it?
It was a local restaurant. Steaks, pieces of grilled fish, just delicious, simple accessibility. But you had no staff, so the first thing was your black book, who knows who's available, who lives in that sort of area. Use my Instagram, who wants a job, and very fortunately, I cobbled together a great team out of nothing. Got some suppliers that I'd worked with before, and we opened. And then we opened for 2 or 3 weeks, and then obviously we got the notice just before Christmas on a Monday that all the restaurants would be shut on the day after that. So we had our last service on the Tuesday. We had all the ingredients in the fridge, and we were packed because everyone wanted to eat on Tuesday before we went into lockdown again on the Wednesday. So
how long was that lockdown for again?
that was the one over Christmas, and then I think that happened until about March or April, didn't it?
Yeah, I can't quite remember. It seems so long ago, actually. So how just out of interest, I'm intrigued. Was the property dilapidated, or was it just
No. It was in Ealing, it was in Walpole Manor, Pitshanger, and Walpole Park on the edge of that. It was a nice place, but obviously when COVID happened, and it was like everything shut, didn't it? So,
yeah. Did you have to like buy in loads of new equipment and that sort of stuff, or not really?
no, it was job number one was get
started.
one of the lads I used to work with and get some oven cleaning tablets and make sure the oven worked. And then myself and a couple of guys, we went in and stripped it and deep cleaned it one day and made it spick and span and sparkling. Because you start off with a clean, tidy kitchen, then you sort of build from there. Then we recruited the staff, then we got ingredients in, then we needed plates and cutlery, and yeah, it was quite a nice little project for 45.
Is the business still there now? Do you know?
It is, but under a different sort of avenue, I think. I don't know who runs it now, but my job on the client was to sort of get it up and running. And
yeah. So you did the job. That must have been really exciting, though, in some respects, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was a nice challenge, shall we say? Certainly, it was a bit of a shock from being in lockdown and sort of looking after yourself to then suddenly doing 104 hours the following week was you weren't exactly shall we say you were a little bit out of shape to do that kind of work.
I got you. Out of interest, what's your favorite style of food or country of food, or where do you get you think, actually, do you know what, I really love doing this style of food? Or
I love the classics, whether that's classical French or British, anything that's flavour driven. I don't like anything that's too fancy or whimsical just for the sake of it. It's got a lemon tart, call it old fashioned, but a lemon tart that's just been baked, that's not seen the fridge, that's just served at that sort of slightly warm temperature, caramelized top, that will always deliver, in taste and flavor, rather than something that's got hot jellies and crumbs and various bits. It's just sort of a menagerie of textures, and someone's tried too hard when something like a beautiful lemon tart with just a simple raspberry sorbet, or in winter a really great sticky toffee pudding with some creme fraiche ice cream, or that was always my style, flavor driven.
Yeah. It's funny. My go-to, if I've got people over, and everybody's always impressed by this, thinking, "Oh wow, this is amazing," is a very simple lemon posset, and people.
That cunning lemon juice, sugar, and cream. Yeah,
exactly. It amazes me, the reaction. Oh, this is awesome! How do you make it? And I said, "Oh, it's a secret recipe." Anyway, does the wife enjoy your amazing food? Because you hear like builders' wives. He would do anything for everybody else, but he never does any building work at our house. Is it a bit like at your home? What is it like, chefy life in your kitchen?
Tracy does the majority of the cooking, the family cooking, but I do cook at home. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always nice for someone, someone to cook for, or someone that's looks after you. But it's few and far between, really. To be fair, that I would cook. Yeah.
Okay, now let's move on to your cycling.
Mm,
Let's go through that and also your charity work, which is unbelievable. It's absolutely amazing.
thank you.
I mean, I in terms of your cycling alone, and you kind of undersold yourself at the start, but let's go into it.
Mm.
Let's talk about cycling and your charity work, please.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Go ahead.
So I sort of not given up cycling, but I hadn't had a number on my back as soon as I took the sort of Lloyd's of London role. So I think I was 29 the last time I sort of raced competitively. Then obviously Lloyd's of London, so busy, it was, you just go out and ride at the weekend and just sort of tickle along and just ride just for a bit of fresh air. Then in 2013, I won a competition, and that competition was called National Chef of the Year. And previous winners have included the likes of Gordon Ramsay. So it allowed me then a little bit more prestige in the industry. Here I was in the front cover of the industry magazine, winner of National Chef of the Year. And then fast forward to late autumn 2014, the ex-England international footballer Jeff Thomas was looking for a team to ride the Tour de France for charity. So the whole route one day before the pros. And I was like, well, one of my friends said, well, that's you all over. Why don't you sort of inquire and sort of join the team? So I made the inquiries. Jeff said to me, we want to raise £50,000 each. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. And I think there was this long pause. How on earth am I going to raise £50,000 in my head? So I called my chairman at the time, another industry legend, a guy called Alistair Story, and pretty much was, would I be able to take a charity sabbatical, ride the Tour de France route one day before the pros the following year? And he was like, well, you're crazy. Do you think you can do it? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I can do it. But first question is, will you let me do it? Is it okay? Will I get the sign off in the business? And it was like, yeah, of course you can. It would be great bit of CSR for the business to have one of their employees sort of go above and beyond outside of what they do day to day at work. And then he asked, would they take a CAF? And I didn't understand what a CAF was, but it's a sort of charitable check. And right then and there, I called Jeff back and said I'm in, and he very generously supported with a large initial donation to the charity. And Jeff was like, well, you weren't joking when you said you were in. And then I just went at it. I went at everything in my life. I sold homemade sausage rolls in Borough Market because I was consulting for Borough Market at the same time as my full-time job, and they put a stand, and we sold £1,500 worth of sausage rolls just before Christmas in Borough Market, again, all for the charity. I wrote some recipes for some wholesalers and suppliers in lieu of a charity donation. I wrote blogs, and then suppliers wanted links to my blogs. So if they donated, I'd put a banner and a link to their business. And very proudly, on the 23rd of April, St George's Day, 2015, I was the first one out of the team to get my fundraising target of £50,000. So that was incredible, and I was immensely humbled. So I went on to raise, I think, about just under £65,000 when it was all said and done that year.
Yep.
The experience was amazing. It was life-changing.
And that was for leukemia, wasn't it?
Yeah, Cllr leukemia.
Yeah.
And it was live out a childhood dream. Okay, you weren't racing the Tour, but you were riding the route one day before the pros. I don't know if
Did they ever catch up with you?
Yeah, no, they didn't. No. Well, you say that, but on one of the stages in the third week, it traversed the same road in 2 consecutive days, and we had to pass that point of the road.
Oh,
The pros would come up, and it was shut. So yeah, it was quite tight actually on that particular day. Yeah, there's a very famous mountain called the Cllr Audrey, and there's and the other side of the mountain is called the Col de Glandon, and we went over the Audrey and then down the Glandon the day before, and then up it, and then across and over the Audrey the next day. So we would have met, should we say? But yeah, you can't just take a day off because it's wet and miserable outside and think I don't fancy riding, because yeah, that's not the challenge, is it? Yeah.
and I'm guessing you didn't do it by yourself, though, right?
No, we had a support crew. We had some mechanics. We had a couple of physios. We had some drivers. We had a team bus. There was 11 riders that took it on. And that particular year, we were joined by Lance Armstrong for 2 days. Jeff had
Oh, wow.
reached out to Lance Armstrong because he was a little bit of an inspiration to Jeff when Jeff was recovering from leukemia. And obviously, we all know that Lance survived cancer and what he'd done through his charity fundraising, aside from what he'd done in the sport, obviously, and what's come out in the wash. But yeah, he joined us for 2 stages, which really sort of turbocharged our message, should we say.
And then you moved on to do more cycling, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So obviously that left a little bit of a void in 2016. I was watching the tour and thinking, I wish I was out there again, wish I was doing this, and always looking back and reposting pictures on my Instagram, this time last year. And I got wind of 3 of the teammates in 2015 were going to take on an even crazier challenge, which was take on the Giro d'Italia, the Tour de France, and the Vuelta a España. So that's the 3 week grand tours. And I said, well, I've got to have a piece of that. So again, called the chairman, Alistair, I've got an idea. In his best Scottish, I know I'll be polite, but he was like, I thought you parked that back in 2015. Yeah, but it's going to be bigger. It's all free. No one sort of takes on all free a day before the pros. I've got an idea. I'll write a book. The book will be a travel log of all the amazing places we've gone through, the 63 stages, beautiful scenery, and then it'll have a recipe that's sort of linked to that terroir, whether we've eaten it or it could be synonymous with that region. And then that book will raise money for the charity. And he just goes, I bloody love the idea. He never asked me how much it would cost, whatever. It was just like, you've got me at hello. And that's it. March the 31st, 2017, I sort of stopped my current role where I was exec chef for the company and started writing a book. And I joke about it. It wasn't like that, but April 1st, the next day, it's like Google, how do you write a book? And, yeah, it was harder writing the book probably than it was riding, because
Really? With all those hills?
yeah, well, all those mountains, yeah, there was some, yeah. It was, yeah, it was, just to write something meaningful. And so we started officially, shall we say, the book on April the 1st. And then on October the 16th, it sort of, someone pushed a big red button somewhere in Italy and started printing it. And I was riding for 9 and a bit weeks. So that's out of the country. We had to have a family holiday. That was non-negotiable. So you can go and play dress up on the bike, but we still needed a family holiday. So that was 2 weeks.
On the bike.
Yeah, there was no bike riding. Yeah. To then have a book that was, went on to raise over £100,000 for the charity, and won 2 World Gourmand Awards, really exceeded all expectations. Yeah,
It's amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing.
I was immensely humbled. Yeah.
Is
So
your book?
my fundraising to, let's say, £165,000 for the charity. In light of everything that we'd done, I was then asked, would I be a patron of the charity? So Jeff were already a patron of the charity, but the other two guys and me, we were made patrons of the charity. So alongside Adrian Childs, Jeff Thomas, Gary Lineker, Ben Foster, and several others, he was this young man that started flipping burgers in McDonald's and now has his name on the footer of a charity. And yeah.
Incredible. It's an incredible journey. And the thing is, what's inspirational about it is, you know, if you go back to say even at 15, you know, perhaps you could have figured that you would want to get involved in a bit of cycling, but probably you wouldn't have thought anything to this level.
No.
And it just shows how much your lives can change, and also in what you're doing now. You know, you've brought up your family, and I suppose, what do you do next? What's the future?
Well, we've ridden another. What am I on now? So I've ridden another 5 Tour de France routes, just the Tour de France. Not belittling it, but not all 3 again. So each summer, I now am a ride leader on behalf of the charity. So I go out and I try and spread the message and try and recruit, you know, riders to come and join us, whether it's on my Instagram, and you know, come and join us, ride the tour route, which is now a week before the pros. That's
Is that because of the age difference?
yeah. No, it was just a little bit easier because on some of the big mountain passes, you know, they were always packed the day before, and we couldn't always get the vehicles because up there it was very exciting to ride one day before because they get bored. These you know, the people that are on the mountain eating their pate and red wine in the afternoon, and so to see a load of cycle tourists come up that afternoon, they get very excitable. But it was also quite difficult to sort of get with the vehicles over some mountains, or sometimes the roads were closed on prestigious cols in the Alps or Pyrenees. So the decision was made, do it a week before, exactly the same thing, you know, the route, exactly everything, but whatever they do, we do one calendar week before. I'm one of the ride leaders, whether that's to sort of keep the group together or if it splits and you've got different abilities to sort of look after 4 or 5 riders and in the mountains, and you know, and then we sort of regroup or we carry on riding and until we get to the hotel, and you know, so there's a couple of ride leaders that sort of look after the group, should we say.
Yeah. What's it like on your joints and stuff like that?
Well, cycling's quite good for the joints. It's not like running in the sense of, and actually when you cycle, you're not doing it. They recommend, especially when you're 50, like, well, by the sounds of it, like both of us should be doing a little bit of strength work because, you know, cycling, you're supporting your joints really because you know, it's you're not running, so you haven't got the impact. So
Right.
I should really be doing some lifting now. I don't, but yeah. And as long as your bike is set up properly, because you do get repetitive. You
Yeah.
know, you're obviously riding along at sort of 90 to 95 revs a minute, times that by 5-6 hours a day, times that by 21 stages. You know, there's a lot of pedal revolutions.
These bikes can be very expensive. How much is your bike worth?
Oh, you had to start right there. Well, I was very, very fortunate that the guys at Veers Velo that represent Factor, which is a great brand, they very kindly lent me my bike for this year. So I've
Wow.
got a beautiful solar blue Monza.
And what would that normally cost somebody?
That would be probably about £8,000 if you
Okay.
were sort of bought it. But you know, most of the bikes that the pros would ride, because you that's the thing about cycling is if a pro rides it, it's got to be available for sale. So
Yeah.
you can buy whatever a pro rides. but you would be looking £12,000 to £15,000 probably for.
Yeah, because I remember watching an episode of Alan Sugar because he's into cycling.
Years.
Yeah, where he said he spent 27,000 on his bike.
Yeah,
Um,
he's
probably because of his performance.
a very famous Italian Grand Mark frame, a Pinarello, but he probably got that slightly customized, should we say?
Yeah. Okay. We've only got a few minutes left. I've got a question for you. Going back to when you won the award in 2013 for Chef of the Year, how can you win an award on a ribeye steak? I need to know.
Well, it wasn't a ribeye like that. It was almost like a Côte de Boeuf. So
Right.
you must have done some homework then.
Yeah, I did do a little bit, yeah.
Well,
Cornish mackerel was the starter, I understand.
Yeah, mackerel. Yeah. I did a soused mackerel dish. We used 2 hours to cook for 4 covers from scratch.
Yeah.
So the world spins slightly quicker on its axis, shall we say, on that day. So soused mackerel with the sort of cockles, that was the starter. And because you had a basket of ingredients, so you had to use from this basket of ingredients. So it wasn't that's because the year before I did grouse, and it didn't go very well, and hence my love of cycling and that very famous cyclist that we mentioned and the grouse made me do a cathartic blog called "It's Not About the Grouse," and that's how the blog started, which also got me a little bit of helped with my fundraising, should we say. But back to your question. So I did the eye of the meat, so the centre cut, and just cooked that medium rare. The cap on the outside I braised and made like a petivier. Petivier is with just lots of mustard in there and vegetables and lots of herbs, and did a little individual sort of French pie. So you had something very hot and tasty there, very aromatic, full of texture. And then you had medium rare, the meat. Obviously, that was just sliced. Then had some girole mushrooms, those beautiful apricot-coloured mushrooms from Scotland. Tickled them along with some garlic and shallots. And then I made a Jerusalem artichoke puree. I scrubbed the Jerusalem artichokes, left them in the skin, and cooked them in loads of foaming butter, and then blended them. So it was really nutty and beautiful flavour. Some spinach, and then I did a sauce with some bone marrow, red wine, and shallots and garlic in there. So it wasn't just a ribeye steak and a bit of beefeater chips. But
all right, I've got about 30 seconds left. I've got two questions. Where do people find you on your socials, your blogs, and all that sort of stuff? How do people find you?
I'd love to connect with people on my Instagram, Hayden K Groves. I'm also on YouTube, but I've only just started on YouTube, Hayden Groves. You can look me up. But Instagram, Hayden K Groves is probably where I've got most of my ramblings, so you can follow along on my story there, and I do a few cheeky recipes every now and then. So if you want to go, and I've got a viral cauliflower cheese that got about loads of views. So give that a look up and give that a go and share your versions.
Okay, we got another guest coming in shortly, and I did ask you about music. Have you got a song that you like and enjoy?
I think it's linked to 2013 Hall of Fame.
Okay, Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right. Hall of Fame.
Okay, we'll play that now.
Get up, you good-for-nothing lazy.
Morning, beautiful.
Oh, didn't you forget something? And don't forget the trash.
Yeah, you can be the greatest, you can be the best, you You can be the King Kong banging on your chest.
You could beat the world, you could beat the war. You can talk to God, go banging on his door.
You can throw your hands up, you can beat the clock. You can move a mountain, you can break rocks.
You could be a master, don't wait for luck. Dedicate yourself and you go find yourself.
Standing in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah,
and the world's gonna know your name.
yeah,
'Cause you burn with the brightest flame,
yeah,
and the world's gonna know your name.
yeah.
And you'll be on the walls of the Hall of Fame. You can go the distance, you can run the mile. You can walk straight through hell with a smile.
You could be the hero, you could get the gold. Breaking all the records they thought never could be broke.
Yeah, do it for your people, do it for your pride. Are you ever gonna know if you never even try?
Do it for your country, do it for your name.
Cause there's gonna be a day when you're standing in the Hall of Fame, and the world's gonna know your name. 'Cause you burn with the brightest flame, and the world's gonna know your name. And you'll be on the walls of the Hall of Fame.
Be a champion, be a champion, be a champion, be a champion.
Walls of the Hall of Fame. Be students, be teachers, be politicians, be preachers. Yeah. Be believers, be leaders, be astronauts, be champions, be truth seekers. Be students, be teachers, be politicians, be preachers. Yeah. Be believers, be leaders, be astronauts, be champions. Standing in the Hall of Fame, and the world's gonna know your name. 'Cause you burn with the brightest flame. Know your name. And you'll be on the walls of the Hall of Fame. You can be the greatest, you can be the best. You can be the King Kong hanging on your chest.
You can be the world, you can beat the war. You can talk to God, go banging on his door.
You can throw your hands up, you can beat the clock. You can move a mountain, you can break rocks.
You could be a master, don't wait for luck. Dedicate yourself and you can find yourself.
Standing in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, good afternoon. God, what a selection of guests we've got today. And today I'm joined by Audrey Dempsey as well, who's a counsellor in Glasgow. Some of you may know her. I've known her for a number of years now, who's faced the plight of being called a racist, dealing with issues by asking questions which should ordinarily be reasonable questions to ask and ask for accountability. Now, like I say, she's been on our show before, and she's also been on our social media platform as well, talking about various stuff. And then also she's been on Toilet Talk, I understand, as well, which I think went down well. It was a lot of fun for you guys. Audrey, welcome.
Hello. Thank you once again for having me.
Yeah. Now, Audrey, just can you give people, because this has been going on for a number of years, and some of the people will not remember this. It was national news in your area. You were a former Labour councillor. Can we just go quickly, try and give a chronology to people?
Yep.
And, you know, what the main thing for me is a level of disgusting skullduggery that's gone on and continue to go on and laboured in your life. So if we can talk back to your Labour councillor years, if possible. And I apologise
Okay.
for listeners that may have heard this before, but it's very important for new listeners as we keep on building our platform.
Yeah. So basically, I was elected as a Labour councillor for Glasgow in 2022. I was in a couple of weeks and wanted out because it didn't take me long to discover that it was very different from what it said on the tin. But I continued on for the sake of my constituents. And then in 2024 March, my child was physically assaulted by a group of African children who were waiting for her at the school gates. This was videoed, circulated, and the long and short of it was there was absolutely no punishment whatsoever for any of the perpetrators at all. There was roughly about 20 of them, and not one of them got as much as a rap in the knuckles, a punishment exercise, a detention, nothing at all. So I then took it to the council, the Labour group, and asked, could we address it at full council? And they told me to submit a question. I submitted the question. And prior to submitting the question, because of what had happened to my child circulated in the area, other people had started to come forward and say that they had experienced similar things, and there was teachers who were saying they were seeing it in the classroom, etc. So the question was, what are we doing to tackle the rising attacks on white children and teachers in our schools? And the Labour business manager came to see me prior to the full council and said that the group did not want to ask this question. They felt it was a bit too Tommy Robinson. And my response to him at that time was, who's he? Because at that point, I really genuinely did not know. And he said they would let it be asked if we changed the word white to black. And I said no, because that was removing the context of the question and the seriousness of the situation that was occurring, because we were well aware that my daughter's case was not an isolated one. And a couple of days later, it was all over the paper. Labour had leaked the question, jumped into bed with the SNP and the Greens, formed a wee coalition against this wee working class woman, and had it on 7 front pages in the Windy that she was the biggest racist in Scotland. So it has been a year and a half of sheer isolation for me in politics, because they wouldn't work with me, they wouldn't speak to me, they wouldn't engage with me. The media wouldn't put anything out about me without putting the big racist councillor next to it, and it's just been horrific, absolutely horrific.
Just as a coincidence, there's that Labour councillor that's been suspended today, isn't it? Because he opposed. Yeah. What's his name? Do you remember? Do you know?
I don't remember his name. I actually just heard it on the news this morning while I was getting ready to go to work. Is this the guy that went against Keir Starmer?
Yeah.
Went against the vote, yeah.
It shows that modus operandi. And I know you used the word working class lady, but or woman, but it's not only that, it's what you've done in the community. They leveraged off you knowing what you were and are, and you've managed to maintain that. To basically convince you to become a Labour councillor.
They did.
They manipulated you, in my opinion, in order to leverage votes, and it worked.
Yeah.
And they stabbed you in the back again, in my opinion. You've not said that, but your opinions may be slightly different. Now, so what happened next? Oh, sorry. So just a question for the sake of listeners, because I actually Googled this myself last time. What does a business manager do?
So the business manager is essentially there to deal with queries, concerns, and issues for councillors. So if there is an issue within the group, the business manager would sort it out. If we are deciding, he leads the kind of executive committee as well. So they will decide on policy changes, they will decide on, budget things, they will decide on what the group discusses, what the agenda is at different meetings, and what's important and what's not. This same business manager, I had actually taken a complaint to him the year previous, where I was personally targeted because of my knowledge of poverty. I was personally targeted by a few members within the Labour group, and I put in a formal complaint. He took 8 months to even read that, never mind deal with it, and he didn't deal with it at all. And when I spoke to him about why, the reasoning for it was just ridiculous, and he was saying, no, they're out to get me as well. I need to watch what I'm doing. So in other words, we'll just sacrifice your dignity and your principles just to cover my back. That's the impression that I got at the time. And that's the way it most definitely the way it felt. So the business manager, he was sent to see me, told me no, and my closing remark to him was, he said to me, what do you want me to do with the question? And I said, bin it, just bin it, and I'll deal with the situation myself. But as I say, I didn't get a chance to deal with the situation because they leaked it to a newspaper in coalition with the other two parties, whom they are supposed to be enemies with, but there you go. They joined forces to take down one of their own, which I just, to this day, still find absolutely bizarre. That's just not in my makeup at all. I can't comprehend it.
It is extraordinary, and obviously what we're going to go into is we believe you come to the end of the road with it now, is that you had to deal with this all by yourself.
Absolutely.
Not only the workplace atmosphere, but also the fact that you continued on helping people, running your charity, dealing with your constituents all by yourself. That must have been felt as such isolation.
Oh, it was. I mean, you suddenly adopt this imposter syndrome, and they willingly inflicted that on me. When I was moved out the Labour corridor and given a separate office to keep me away from them, because that's normal, that's what they do. They keep all the parties separate, and I was then an independent, so I got an office myself. When I went into my office, they had left a bag of dog mess in my office for me as a welcome gift. I mean, that's the brutal reality of the kind of low level gutter politics that I was dealing with.
That's not even skullduggery, is it? That's disgusting.
That was vile.
Yeah,
absolutely vile.
That's a good one, though, isn't it? Really, leave some turd on your desk.
Yeah. No, this is the thing, Brad. It wasn't on my desk. It was hidden in a box. So the office was absolutely reeking, and myself, another councillor, a Tory councillor at the time, actually, because they were my next door neighbours in my new office. They had the office next door. The Tory councillor and two of the admin staff were everywhere ripping the office apart trying to find where the smell was coming from, and it was the Tory councillor that found it in the box, and he said, "Oh, somebody's left you a present." So to this day, I would just like to know, even if they wanted to tell me anonymously, feel free to do so. Did they actually let their dog do that and then carry it all the way into work, or did they go to the toilet and do that themselves and leave it for me? That's the thing that's baffling me, because it's regardless of what it is, it's still got to have got from A to B. So
exactly. Either way, it's not a nice thought.
Yeah.
Okay. But you managed to get through that period. And I know you had the domestic issues during that period as well. You had to deal with let's move on from that anyway. But you're one damn strong woman, Audrey. You really are. And to do it with a smile and giggle all the time. I mean, I follow you on social media, and you're always putting a bright light on something that may not have a bright light on it. You're always positive. And now we're at a time of Christmas. No doubt your charity is busy as hell. How's that going?
Absolutely.
I'm just going to mention it now because I want to end on, the outcome of everything that's gone on. So I just want to talk about your charity. How's that going?
Well, sadly, they targeted the charity as well, but we are still soldiering on, and we haven't been able to claw in any funding for the past kind of 19, 20 months, because the first thing funders do when you submit an application is Google you. And when they were given all these anonymous interviews about this horrible, horrific, racist councillor, they were making sure that they were mentioning the charity's name. Oh, she founded this charity and it's called such and such. So when the funders were Googling the charity name, it was just coming up racism, and nobody's going to fund that. Not once. I mean, I consistently offered to the media, to the press, to the funders, to the politicians, my door is open. You can come and you can look and see the demographics of the numbers that we help, because at that point in time, we were the biggest provider to the Mayor's organisation. It was a lot of women and families, women and kids who were coming into the country, and we fully supported them with all their clothing, their toys, their educational goods, the household goods, etc. So we were given stacks, hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of goods every year to migrant families. but they overlooked that. They weren't interested in the actual facts. They just liked the scandal, and they wanted to keep the scandal going at my expense.
Controversy gets more readers and views and clicks and all that sort of stuff on any social
Absolutely.
media,
Yeah.
sadly. But I remember last year, you and your scarf, your hat, your double jacket in the warehouse, and we was on a call. You were just showing me around it, or maybe even the year before. I can't quite remember. But the and that's the sad thing about it, Audrey, isn't it? You know, this is evil. This is
Yeah.
evil.
Oh, it's vile. Absolutely vile. I've never
Yeah.
known anything like it in my life. And I was brought up in the East End of Glasgow. You know, we were a working class family who it was first up, best dressed in the morning. There was 5 kids in our house, my brother and my 3 sisters and myself. We didn't have a lot of money. So, you know, we have seen it all as such. We were brought up in a scheme, and you think you've dealt with, you know, I worked in community addiction, I've worked with murderers, I've worked with rapists, I've worked with people of, you know, who have done really horrific things in their life. I have never come up against people like this before, ever. It's politics is just, it's gutter politics at the minute. It really is. It's vile.
That's the bit that really sours me, is that this has actually affected so many people. Where you've not been able to do what you normally do, just purely because of maybe 1, 2, 3 or 4 individuals. I don't know how many are involved, but they're complete scumbags in my opinion. And also the media as well.
Definitely.
Because it's easy to validate your history. And the thing is, they even scared off people from even speaking out to help you and support you. I know I did as best as I could, with a little campaign, because it's clearly obvious you're not a racist. And what I will say as well, which I hate, absolutely despise, and I never, well, I'm 44 years old, so I'm a little bit behind you. But I never even heard of years ago the word far right. Yeah, never. Right, never even crossed, you know, verbal language in any way, shape, or form. Or I never ever been called a racist in my life. Right, I've been called far right and racist. Just for asking questions.
Yeah.
And I find it extraordinary. The how you could be labelled something. I mean, it's laughable, but for someone who's in the political sphere, you know what I mean. My words have lost me there. Fear. No, what is it? Fear. Oh no, what spectrum? Okay, let's just use that word. You know, where you can just be pumped into the newspaper to feed headlines and help their distribution and that sort of stuff. It's got to be, you know, really, really traumatic. I know you were really upset. I know you were. At the time, and you know you were looking at even stopping doing your work and stuff like that, and it never ever crossed my mind that you believed that you were racist, but I think they made you believe or even question if you're a racist. That's the impression I got.
They do. You do. I mean, you know yourself. You can put your head in your pillow every night because you know that you do your best by everybody that you come across that's in need. You support them the best you can. But when you're consistently, every time you go into the internet, your face is there with this headline and you're going, am I right? But no, I was, to my dying day, I will stand by. I was defending my child, whom I have to say, Brad, because there were no consequences at that particular time for the actions, those attacks did not stop. Other children suffered from them. And my own child, and 12 months, an actual year to the very month of that happening to her, she went on to be sexually assaulted in a PE lesson. So, you know, in my opinion, people will say to me, but why do you think that had something to do with those kids not being punished? And I says, because there was no example set. There was no bar set to say, right, okay, this is a line. And if you cross that line, there is punishment. If you stay on this side, you do good, you'll be rewarded. You do bad, you will be punished. So these kids have been left to believe that they can act as they see fit and get no consequences whatsoever. And what it is resulting in is victims, you know, all over the place, predominantly girls. And that's just completely unfair.
The problem is as well, Audrey, as well, and this is a massive problem in the UK, is the fear of people, or let's call them leaders, like teachers, for example, that are in charge of, if they seek and say, look, it was him over there that did this, and the fact is, what? Okay, I'll just get straight to it. Then it was Mohammed who did this, and yeah, but we can't say he's Mohammed. We can't talk about it. We can't even relate that he's a different culture, different skin, different ethnicity, and that's the wrong sort of way to look at it. It's just facts of the case.
Yeah.
And and that puts the teachers on the back foot, where they can't do what is status quo. Okay, the book says this. You need to be suspended, or whatever it may be. But the fact is, there's a tier of protection there out of fear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. The problem is, it's getting worse, Audrey. You look at all these convictions, and now as well, for like hurty words on the internet and that sort of stuff. And we are in the UK, and that includes Scotland and Wales, and Ireland, Northern Ireland. We're being known for basically kiboshing freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But also, in terms of like, when it comes to reporting, you go and say it's. I'm going to just use the word Mohammed because I use that as the most popular word and name in the UK now, isn't it? So that's where it come from. It didn't come from racism. But the facts are the facts, and it should be investigated on its own accord. But then you got shut down, and then you got basically putting on news stories, and I can't even understand why they would do that, to be honest. But I think the benefit that you had is not only a strong character, but also the fact that you had so much of a past of helping your community, and I think that's what held you up, because others would have failed. Now, let's move on to you had a hearing recently. You represented yourself.
Yes, I did.
What was this hearing about?
So this hearing was about, what they did was basically, what I think the expectation at that time, Brad, was if we do this to her, she will just curl up and die. She will be quiet. She will not bother us again. She will resign from politics. But it didn't. So they then come back with another story that I had racist videos on my TikTok profile and had since deleted them. And I instantly contacted the journalist and said, I'll give you my password if you want. You can log into my account and look at all deleted history. There's been nothing deleted. That is a blatant lie. So they didn't get me in that one either. I bounced back for that one. Then they put out that I was being racist against migrants through a poverty presentation that I had put in. I managed to justify all that as well. I even had video evidence of me supporting migrants at a Christmas appeal, etc. Put that on Twitter, and that shut that story down. And these characters were just like, what do we need to do to get shot at her? So what they did was...
Let's throw enough mud. Hopefully something will stick at least.
Yeah, so they roped in a community campaigner and said, you must report her to the Standards Commission, and he runs this Facebook page which is supposed to be all about community. Now that's a matter of opinion, and I won't expose my opinion here, but I have a very different opinion of what this page is supposed to be for. So he had on his Facebook page with over 100,000 followers, which he likes to get out there. Everybody must report this councillor. She is really racist and she is inciting violence against African children. And she was totally disrespectful to the business manager in a podcast that she did. So nobody...
Was this a Labour person?
Well, actually, I'm led to believe that he is an avid SNP fan. But remember, there's a coalition here. This wasn't just Labour. This was Labour, SNP and Greens, who all jumped into bed together just to take Audrey Dempsey down.
Oh, yeah.
So they've recruited him. nobody took him up on it in his page, but he submitted a what do you call it? He submitted a complaint. So that was last October. And the Ethical Standards Commission, which is the governing body for politicians in Scotland. So if you want to complain about a politician, it's the ethical standards that you complain to. They investigated me for a full year and a half there, and they came back and said, look, we can't find any evidence of the incitement or against African children. We can't find any evidence of the racism. But on the face of it, you kind of have been a bit disrespectful to the business manager.
So
I
what?
said, right, okay. Because I discussed the conversation that him and I had that day. He came to see me about the question, because effectively what happened was he said to me, the question was about to Tommy Robinson. I've said, what is that? Who's he? And he kind of
He actually said
chuckled.
to you, it's to Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, he
Really?
absolutely did. So
Is there a dictionary for Tommy Robinson? Like,
I know
word?
what's the definition exactly. Absolutely. But then he went on to say the group would let you ask the question if you change the word white to black. So
how would
this
that question?
community.
Repeat the question again, then. Sorry, just so we can. Let's just try
So
it
the
out.
question was, what actions are we taking against the rising attacks against white children and teachers in our education system?
And what, they didn't like the word white? Or...
They wanted it changed to black. So
So
this complaint.
rephrase that again, just so I can get my. So change the word to black for me, and let's repeat the question.
What action are we taking against the rising attacks on black children and teachers? But that isn't what happened.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And my response was, it takes the whole context of the question away.
Jeez. That wasn't. Oh, gee, I didn't know that. So the question become mute, really.
Well, that's why he said to me, so what do you want me to do
What
with
do
the
they have to
question? I
do?
said,
Go
bin it.
round up a load of black people then to find out, are you a victim? You're talking about your daughter.
It just didn't make sense at all. There was video. They'd seen the video. They'd
So
seen the video
offensive as
evidence.
well. That's so offensive on your daughter.
Yes, absolutely.
Let alone you.
Absolutely.
Jeez.
So,
go on, carry on. Jeez.
this ethical standards hearing was, initially they said we're not going to pursue it because due to Article 10, the European Court of Human Rights, you have freedom of expression. So we can't pursue it. And I said, fantastic, case closed. But then a week later, I announced that I had joined the Reform Party and was now a Reform councillor, not an independent councillor. I was a Reform councillor. And my reasoning for doing that was I needed to find a political outfit who were not afraid to have conversations that involved this kind of stuff, because my daughter was still reporting to me what was going on in school and to other kids. And so the forum were not afraid to have those conversations, and we had lots of discussions, and I said, right, okay, I'll jump aboard. So after announcing that I had become a Reform councillor, I then received a further email from the Standard saying, do you know what? We're just going to take you to a hearing after all. So I thought, oh gosh, is this politically motivated, or is this coincidence, or is this because you just don't know? So the hearing was on the 2nd of December. And where I thought I was just going to go in, discuss it, come to the verdict and be out within an hour, it actually went on from 9:30 until 12:15. So it was a long one. It was a long day. But I am absolutely delighted and thrilled to say that they found me in absolutely no breach whatsoever. So my name is completely cleared, because they investigated the racism, couldn't find it. They investigated the incitement thing, couldn't find it. And after the hearing, where they brought the business manager in, and I got to cross-examine him because I was doing my Ally McBeal. After, what questioning him as a witness and then questioning myself, they came to the conclusion that no, she hasn't breached anything. So win-win. Was brilliant.
What's also amazing, Audrey, is all the newspaper articles that are subsequently been written following the second, saying that you've been vindicated. Is that correct?
Well, I actually, do you know, the reality is I have not seen one news article apart from LBC who were present at the hearing. I haven't seen any. And I was really annoyed because I said, you know, if I had been guilty, if they had said, yeah, you've definitely breached the code of conduct here and you're suspended for 6 months, that would have been like front page, front and centre.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that I was given a reprieve, I googled it when I came out the hearing and there was nothing apart from LBC, and I thought, oh, so you're all running scared now, are you? Rather than just come out and say, we got it wrong, sorry. You're just not going to print anything.
That was a rhetorical question, by the way. I knew the answer. The dirty scumbags didn't report anything.
Yes. No.
Which is completely unfair.
Absolutely.
You know, they leveraged you like
Absolutely.
anything, and they didn't report on what was rightly just. Okay, so let's talk about reform then. You obviously joined, and you're somewhat embedded now in what you're doing. What's your plans for next year after Christmas and stuff?
Well, I don't actually know. I'm going to a rally on Saturday to see Mr. Farage for the first time. So there's over 700 people going. And apparently at this rally, he's going to unveil the plans for January onwards, because we have Scottish elections next year up here. We have MSP elections up here. So obviously we will be out campaigning for candidates, etc. For the full 5 months, because the elections are in May.
It's in May, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think some have they cancelled some of them in the UK now. Because the government, the local, some of the councils were saying, can we delay it, something like that, or was that when?
Yeah, that's down in England. In Scotland,
Yeah, sorry, I used the wrong
the
word.
Scottish elections have to go ahead, but I believe down in England they're looking to put them back again, and they're pinpointing the ones where they think Reform are going to win.
So
It's just
dodgy.
like, is that allowed?
That's what I was thinking. I think that, you know, what depths do they actually go to? I mean, democracy should stand as one thing, but to say, you know, you can't suddenly say, I want to control the democracy. That's an oxymoron, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you just think, where do these people get off thinking the public are just going to lie down to this? Because one point I would like to make, Brad, is I am horrified at obviously our experience, what happened to myself and my daughter. But throughout the country, the as you say, the hurty words and people being arrested and being given criminal records for, you know, using specific language. When we do, they don't want us to leave the European Court of Human Rights, but they don't want to acknowledge your human rights either, because you do have the right to freedom of expression. And you know, the one thing that kind of disgusts me a great deal, and you think that they have flipped the whole thing to a control mechanism now, where people are instilled with fear and anxiety about speaking honestly and truthfully.
100%.
And we shouldn't ever be that way. We shouldn't. I was determined to see this through, and I was determined to see it through with no lawyer and no legal representation, because I didn't want to walk in there like a guilty party. I went in there with my own 2 feet, my own 2 hands to defend myself, because I believe in my heart of hearts, telling the truth is not wrong. It is not wrong. And I think that is why we now, as the Reform Party, have what's known as the silent majority. And that is people who will, you know, they'll tell you in the toilets when you're at a meeting or whatever, by the way, I'm voting Reform, but I can't say anything because I might lose my job. And, you know, that is just outrageous. That is disgusting that is what this country has come to.
It's very true. In back in the day, it used to be a status thing to not tell people who you're voting for. You know? Now it's that I can't tell you out of fear of basically you're one of them.
You will judge me and label me and diagnose me with this big illness of fascism. You know, it's just...
What I thought was really funny, was I'll tell you a little funny joke actually. I mentioned about Kerry earlier,
Yeah.
saying that she couldn't make it. She'd really love to, and I said to her, I said, okay, don't worry. I'll just tell Audrey that you're going for a photo shoot with Keir Starmer. What I was going to say, right? A recent Keir Starmer interview, he said I wouldn't mind if I lost against Conservatives. I could sleep well at night on my pillow. What the F?
Unbelievable.
And he talks about a two-party system, which is the way it's always been, Conservatives and Labour. But he said basically, but reform, no, he's saying no, and he's got it. He's got a proper hard on for reform, isn't he? The
Oh,
and it just shows his true colours, and I'm just hoping it works out. I really am hoping it works
well,
out.
on the upside, what they've did with all this skullduggery, as you called it earlier, and the cloak and dagger kind of politics that we have been exposed to for the past 2 years. One thing they have done in reform's favour, and not so much in the favour of the mainstream parties like Labour, Conservatives, the SNP, the Greens, and the Lib Dems, is they have made the public sit up and become more political aware than they have ever been in their lifetimes.
True.
Ever in the history of the public. People are sitting up and taking notice now of things that would have previously just gone right over their head, and they'd have been quite happy to let it go over their head. But now that they see the detriment that it's bringing to them as individuals, to their families, to their communities and their areas, they're going, no, wait a wee minute, we need to pay attention to what's getting said here, we need to pay attention to what's going on. And the more attention they're paying, the more they are seeing for themselves that this is corruption at the highest level. So the difference with reform from where I'm sitting, with my reform hat on and with my reform hat off, is reform's top tier, every one of them are businessmen. This country's never been run by a businessman. Never. And we have ended in deficit every single year. But not only are these people businessmen, they're also businessmen of very successful businesses. And if they can turn this country around, which I truly believe they can, with a business mindset and run it as a business, which is the way America's run, which is the way Poland's run, but it's the way all the countries are run, apart from us, then I believe they can whip it into shape in no time. But the probably the most promising thing for me is that I'm starting to now see that the public believe that, and the public are seeing that for themselves, and they're thinking, right, okay, so Keir Starmer was he, a procurator fiscal or something? So what does he know about business? What does he know about running a country? He doesn't know anything, and he's apparently orchestrating it for people who are most definitely worthy of a criminal jail sentence. He's orchestrating it for them to walk free, and that's people are noticing these kind of things.
Hey, Audrey, I literally just got just over a minute left. I just want to be very quick on this. Funny enough, one of the injustice cases we're dealing with involves Keir Starmer when he was head of the CPS. The one guy I've been talking to is Lewis Holmes, who's reformed for barking and Dagenham. He's the same message. It's all about being a business and understanding.
Absolutely.
You're a service provider as a business, and you haven't got blank checks everywhere. Now, let's end on this. Thank you very much for your time. And
you're very welcome.
One thing, just what's really interesting, on the radio station, I get more reform councillors than anybody. I don't get any Labour whatsoever, and they wonder why they're not getting the votes. The reason being they don't like questions being asked them. But I do get reform and Conservative councillors. Do you want to play a song to see us out?
Yeah. Do I get to pick it? Do you pick it?
Yeah, you pick it. Yeah.
Put me in the spot here, Brad. Oh God, what's a good victory song?
I don't know, like Rocky or something. I can play Stand Up Again if you want.
Do you know what? That sums it, doesn't it? That sums it up to a T. Yeah, you go for that one.
That goes back to one of our first shows. Thank you for your time, Audrey.
Thank you very much for having me. Cheers. You take care.
Bye bye.
I've been walking with my face turned to the sun. Weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my gun. Oh, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I do what I can when I can, while I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, that's when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones.
You have made it 100 miles to freedom. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Parentum. Early in the morning, before the sun begins to shine, we're gonna start moving towards that separating line. I'm wading through muddy waters. You know I got a made up mind, and I don't mind if I lose any blood on the way to salvation. And I fight with the strength that I got until I die. So I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on.
Harriet, welcome to the Underground Railroad.
And I know what's around the bend might be hard to face 'cause I'm alone, and I just might fail, but Lord knows I'll try